Thank you, Honourable Chair. Firstly, I will follow up on the fact that you said you requested certain reports and you did not receive it. My policy is that that is part of accountability, and the reports must be presented. And that's why I also said it is an important topic, because an unnatural death, of course, have certain consequences, not only for officials, but in the end, it normally also ends with the South African Police Services, where you can have further, can I say, processes where criminal charges of murder can be constituted from that. So that is important. And I agree with you. When we request people to appear in front of the Portfolio Committee, there are no excuses. We must remember that Parliament and the Portfolio Committee can even summons anyone, even from the public, to appear in front of this committee. The committee represents the people of South Africa. The members are all representatives of the electorate, and it is part of our policies and ethos to ensure that there is accountability and transparency. I said to my officials, we don't hide anything. We will put forward the facts. If we are on the wrong side, we will see that we correct the situation. And I do believe in justice and fairness, but having said that, I also believe that our officials must also understand that they are also protected. They've got a difficult work and job to do. They're working with hardened criminals. And I want to say that to the committee, you must always keep that in mind. We had incidences where some of our people, after such an incident, ended up in hospital. So remember that. And for me, that is also important. It is about a balance of interests. The mere fact that investigators are here, heads of correctional centers, because they, for me, I always say that is the backbone of correctional services, because they are the responsible people that must ensure and know what's going on in their centers. And also the fact that Magaung Correctional Center officials are here with G4S, and there are investigators present, so that the questions that can be asked by the honourable members can be thoroughly been answered. So that's from my side, and through you then, Honourable Chair, I am.
Minister, ons kan nie sê dis die eerste maal wat hierdie tipe van dinge aangaan in the prisons here in South Africa. I think two things that caught me that I'm stuck with here today while going through that report, and one cannot be diplomatic about it, is when I heard the words, dragged on a blanket. Dragged on a blanket. When I heard the presenter saying that he was carried on a wheelchair with his head dangling and his feet probably sweeping the floor. That is inhumane, to say the least. These are the stories we read about during the time of apartheid. And I cannot believe in today's day and age we still hear of such heinous, horrendous, heartbreaking stories unfolding in our prisons. Minister, this is a direct, unfortunately, reflection on you. This is during your watch where this is happening. All of those officials implicated in this, all of them tried to cover up. Not one stood up ethically and spoke the truth. Reports were tampered, misleading information was given by not one person, by everyone in all of these cases. We have been highlighting time and time again, and I'm sitting here this morning and I'm listening to everyone, and I'm asking myself, you know what, previously we have given suggestions, we have made recommendations, and 6 months after us making those recommendations, we go back to those facilities, and no one has taken the time or day to actually implement not a single recommendation. I speak to something as simple as, if you look at these suicide stats, drug overdose stats, the state should actually be charged for all of these murders, if you look at it. Because this is negligence from the state. Our prisons are meant to be drug-free zones. How did the drugs enter a prison that's meant to be a drug-free zone? Who do you blame? Who accounts for that death? It should be the state. When you look at the suicides, the high rate of suicides, if we should conduct, I want to know what percentage of those suicide-related deaths were autopsies performed. Because I can tell you one thing, you'll find that those people were probably hallucinating, and this was also as a result of mental health and drug-related deaths. You'll find that a great percentage. I'm asking, we speak about gang-related attacks in the prisons. It's not the first time force is being used, gang-related. I want to know, in South Africa, we have the Poker Act. National Commissioner, are you aware of the Poker Act? NC? Are you aware of the Poker Act? Just a nod. Why are we not utilizing the Poker Act in our prisons to identify gangs? And I spoke about this the other day when we spoke about that system that was meant to be introduced in 2025, where we actually assess the inmate coming in and actually identifying, because gangs, prisons in this day and age, it's a university for gangs. Why are we not identifying when people belong to gangs in prison and actually charging them via the Poker Act? That is another tool that you should be using as part of your programs that you are introducing. All of those programs that you are introducing now, we spoke about it, and we actually had the presentation the other day by the lady when we were on our strat meeting, and we said we cannot even measure the effectiveness of any of these programs in our prisons. Why? Because there's no integrated system that actually can hold all of this information. So vandag gaan ons maar nou weer hier kom, and I'm going to leave this place thinking about a body that was dragged on a blanket and this wheelchair incident that just has me, I can't believe it. But we're going to come back here and we're going to conduct oversight again, Chairperson, and guess what? You see all those catches hanging out the windows. No one's going to make it their effort today to actually just send out a simple memorandum asking those officials actually just to take off everything off the windows, just to make sure that there's no cling wrap in any of those cells that contributes, because these are the real stories, to pushing up contrabands. Just to make sure that there's no toilet papers. There's so many little things that you can do in your centers to avoid these incidents. But we're going to go back, and I'm not telling you a word of a lie. We're going to find all of these things there that makes these places conducive for drug overdoses and conducive for suicides. Minister, all of these things, I want to leave you with this, happened during your time, on your watch. Thank you.
We thank the Department of Correctional Services for the macro and the micro reports that they presented to us. Both those reports are deeply disturbing. Chair, it doesn't help to put on slide 9 of the macro report the issues around apartheid-era prisons and the harsh conditions that prevailed in those prisons. It sounds to me as if the department is trying to tell us that things have significantly improved since then. Unfortunately, they haven't, although they should have improved significantly. Because today we have a constitution driven by a set of human rights values. But when I look at both these two, as I've said, disturbing reports, I do not see them being driven by the human rights values that are set out by our Constitution. Chair, we have become a society tolerant of what is unacceptable. I can tell you that in many other countries throughout the world, if reports like this were presented, it would have led to a national outrage. There would have been calls for the senior officials, including also the political responsible executive, the minister, deputy minister, to resign. Unfortunately, in our society, we've become far too tolerant of these kind of situations. Chair, if we look at the figure of the increase of unnatural deaths in prison, it is 30%. This is not improving, it is getting worse. Now I understand that there's the issue of the increase in terms of overcrowding, because as the report points out to us, more prisoners come in than those that go out. And of course, at the essence of the dreadful experience that prison in South Africa is the issue of overcrowding. Every one of us, as members of this committee, who go on oversight visits can see that. But what we can also see is that the figures as they are presented to us, the breakdown in terms of unnatural deaths, suicides, overdoses, etc., all in one way or another overlap. Chair, I want to know from the department how they can tell us specifically that the various figures on suicide, which is the highest number that they give here, are actually suicides. And which of those related also to the manner in which inmates have been treated or neglected. We know very well that suicide, under conditions such as that I've just described, can't simply be said that these prisoners have decided to take their lives. There may very well be many other conditions, including also the manner in which correctional services officials treat these inmates. At the same time, Chair, there's this dreadful lack of psychological assistance to prisoners. Some of my colleagues have referred to the numbers. I don't need to go into them again. But we do not have even a semblance of proper treatment of the challenges that prisoners are being faced with. Nor do we have enough psychologists to even begin to treat those conditions. So, Chair, we have a situation where we are told that there are unknown causes of death. It's one of the statistics being presented to us here. I don't understand how you can come and tell me that there's unknown causes of death. Surely there must be a proper assessment and reporting, and it must be known how that prisoner died. It is unacceptable in this day and age to come and tell us there were unknown causes of death and give it as a statistic to us in this committee. Furthermore, Chair, I cannot accept, even if the department tells us that these are serious matters and they were busy investigating, that it took them months and months and months before they could even provide us provisionary reports on the serious cases in the second report that had been presented to us. In the case of Mpho Mkhubeni, he died on the 12th of March. We are told that there was only a report available on the 4th of September. In the meantime, we were not given any communication by the department. One of the critical abilities that this department should have is to communicate to us as a portfolio committee. We also picked up that there were gaps in the communication between the department and JICS. And some of the statistics that are presented do not tally. Even when we had JICS appearing before us, Mr. Justice Cameron indicated concerns about communication and reporting by the department. This is dereliction of duty. Chair, then specifically on the 3 reports in the second presentation. It cannot be that we continue to hear that G4S undermines the department. We have an acting director appointed to take control on behalf of the Department of Correctional Services. But that person comes to us today and report to us that he has been undermined by G4S. And he gives us a detailed report. It's as much his and the department's failure as it is G4S. Because the department should have taken the necessary and stronger action in order to deal with this issue. It also cannot be, Chair, that G4S, although we've said that the term of control of this prison at Mangaung will come to an end, can continue until that period is played out. That term of control must be stopped right now. They have failed over and over and over again. And anything that the Department of Correctional Services and our government allows that G4S to continue to control Mangaung prison will be a dereliction of duty. So it must stop. I want to know how the department dealt with the family of Mpho Mkhubeni. I was approached by that family. And they were deeply distraught by the various misinformation that was put out by the department. There was defeating the ends of justice all the time. If we look at this current report that we've received, and we compare it with the media reports that were originally published about what happened, Mr. Mngubeni was long already passed on. But according to the reports, he was apparently alive going to hospital. Blatant lies. Those people responsible for those lies must be held responsible. Chair, if I look at the Goodwood report, unacceptable use of severe violence, even at the point where the particular prisoner was not armed and it was undue force used. I want to know what is being done beyond what we have been told here to address these issues. I'm going to conclude because many of my colleagues have gone into the detail of this. But I want to tell you that our prisons, unfortunately, are failing the human rights culture that we say that we are committed to. I want to tell you that the comparison that you tried to make between the apartheid era and this era now is a false comparison, because very little has changed. We are failing ourselves, we are failing our human rights culture, and we are committing serious crimes. And I repeat it once again. Minister, Deputy Minister, officials, there are many other countries that if you came to present a report like this, you would have been without a job tomorrow. This country is far too intolerant, far too tolerant of the unacceptable. And it is time for us to draw that line in the sand and say, this cannot continue. And I agree with my colleague, the Honorable James, that we will go back next week and the week after and the year after. If things continue as they continue now, and we will not see any difference. We will continue to see the conditions under which these prisoners are being held. And we will continue to see the abuse of human rights. I come from an era where Nelson Mandela set certain standards, and you refer to those standards in your presentation. You failed dismally. I know personally what it means to be in the prison. I know what it means to be maltreated, to be abused. I'm not saying prisons should be hotels. Definitely not. I'm also not saying that we should not have consideration, and I heard what the minister said, for the complicated and difficult conditions under which prison officials have to work. But none of that justifies what we have been receiving this morning. And none of that justifies what I see and what the rest of us, as we sit here as members of this portfolio committee, see when we go into our prisons. The overcrowding is a problem, yes. Massive. We must try to address it. But the levels at which prisoners are being abused in our prison system are unacceptable. And you cannot tell me, and I'm concluding with this, Chair, that this large number of suicides that you present in your report simply means that prisoners have decided to make an end to their lives. There's a consequence, there's a reason why those suicides are there. And they relate to the conditions in prison. And they also relate to the manner in which prisoners are being treated by prison officials. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I've heard the word disturbing on the reports from different honourable members. Now, I want to say, yes, it is disturbing. And I want to start with what Honourable James had said. Ek stem saam met u. Dit kan nie aangaan soos wat dit aangaan nie. Ek stem 100% saam. But maybe, Honourable Chair, the time has come that we must put the inconvenient truth on the table when it comes to correctional services. What is the inconvenient truth? The truth of the matter is, and I always compare it with an artisan. If you want to ensure that the artisan does a good job, you must give him the tools to do that job. Because if you don't have the tools and the correct tools, you cannot expect a good job. And that relates to correctional services. And relating to correctional services, we must also get the broader picture in terms of the criminal justice system. Referring specifically to the police, the Department of Justice, and then, of course, DCS. The fact of the matter, Honourable Chair, is that we are obliged, in terms of legislation, to do certain things and to comply to certain matters. It's true. But what it does not say is that government must ensure that there is a sufficient budget to ensure that correctional services can provide those services. The budget gives us the tools to do our job. And let me refer, for instance, in the presentation you saw the artificial intelligence technology in terms of integrated security system. Now, about a month ago, I visited St. Albans. I've looked at this integrated security system. But maybe I must shock you. It's a state-of-the-art security system. But we don't have the people in correctional services to man and to operate that system. It's a fact. I've asked the question. Why? Because we don't have the budget to appoint enough people to do the job. I've said in this committee before, when I visited Westville, I was confronted with a situation where only four wardens had to control about 650 inmates. Now, do you think it's fair? If you think it's fair, and you think that we should terminate the services of those four wardens because they don't do their job, say so. I think it is unfair. We talk about psychologists, social workers. You can even add psychiatrists. Yes, we have a shortage. And Correctional Services made various presentations to the Portfolio Committee, saying this is our problem. It's the inconvenient truth. And we and my officials and the whole department are doing their utmost best to try to operate within these inconvenient circumstances. And can I say to you, it's going to increase. You will see with the performance report, we only received 29.2 billion rand. We're already projecting almost 1 billion rand overspend. And that is why, from our side, we try our utmost best to look in which ways we can be self-sufficiently. That's why we have our own bakeries. That's why we are trying to promote and increase the production in terms of our agricultural products. That's why we have people in our workshops. I already wrote a letter to the Minister of Basic Education so that we can start manufacturing school desks. That's what we are doing. Why? Besides the goods of rehabilitation of the inmates involved in those activities, we have to save money in correctional services. But this is an ongoing problem that is growing. And why do I say that? The police are coming to be more effective. And talking about society and human rights, the people of South Africa demand that we must effectively fighting crime. They're demanding it. We're an unsafe country. Now, what is the effect of that? We all agree. And even as politicians, we agree, yes, please, become more effective. There are commissions looking at corruption in police. There's an outcry. If we talk about outcries from our society, those are the outcries of crime in South Africa. And we must always remember, Honourable Chair, correctional services, we are at the end receiving point of more effective crime prevention. And in that process, we are confronted with a Justice Department